Good morning, you two. How are you doing?
We're great. How about you?
Great.
I'm excited to talk with you guys because I think that one of the things that I vibed with when I tapped into your podcast was the fact that you're doing something that a lot of people aren't doing, and that is talking about politics. And because most people will yell about politics, they'll run away from politics, but you guys just talk.
I think that's true, and thanks. But I would put it a slightly different way. What we're talking about is character.
Ooh.
We're trying to tell this incredible story. And this is the story that will be, years from now, 20 years from now, when we talk to our grandchildren, this will be the story of our time. It will be like our World War II.
Yeah.
And to begin to tell that story, to begin to be able to have some distance from it, and to have some notion of the story dynamics, of the character dynamics, rather than the political sides, is what we're trying to do here.
See, that's every bit the reason why I'm a daily writer, because my parents didn't leave me anything to read, and I just want to give something to the future, because there's going to come a day when people are going to say, what happened on 9/11? Oh, let me give you my daily writing. You go ahead and you spend some time studying this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, this is all I seem to do is write about Donald Trump. So I'm leaving a lot to my children on that front.
James, I would love to see a book if we all sat down and we wrote a story just to find out everybody's interpretation.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Michael's 3 books have given us such a window into Trump, and I believe there's a 4th on the way, Michael, that will be coming out around the election.
One of the things that you both of you talk about is the fact that you're not afraid to talk about the potential of there being some jail time here.
There's the potential. One of the interesting things about this story is that we have seen is that there is a potential for everything. Mm-hmm. It's almost, you cannot imagine. I mean, that is the course of this race, the course of Donald Trump's political career, is that it lurches from one thing that you would not have been able to imagine in a normal world to another thing that you would not have been able to imagine.
Wow. James, do you think at any other time in history, has there been somebody that has broken up families and friends more than Donald Trump?
I've often tried to think of that question. I mean, obviously you had the American Civil War, where families were divided and fighting against each other, literally. I've not found the equivalent in contemporary politics of someone who can divide such strong bonds as family. No.
Wow. Michael, what about the lack of the First Lady being at his side? I can't imagine what you're locating with your research.
Well, I would say that is one of the most unasked, one of the most important and unasked and unanswered questions of this campaign. Where is Melania? Mm-hmm. She has made not one campaign appearance in 18 months. She has not shown up at any of his multitude at this point of court appearances, and she showed up at the convention only on the last possible moment. And then my understanding from what I hear is she refused to appear in the VIP box when her husband was there. How do we read this? This is, and it's interesting that the media has really shied away from asking this question. I think most of the people I know who were involved with covering the Trump White House when he was the president were perfectly aware that she spent very little time at the White House. Since then, equally, if you have paid any attention to Donald Trump's life at Mar-a-Lago, one of the things that stands out is that she spends very little time there. Now, I don't think that this is a hostile relationship. As a matter of fact, I had I had dinner with them together at Mar-a-Lago. And at the same table, they didn't talk to each other. They kind of talked to people. It was like the wedding party, and people kept coming up to them. But she certainly was there. But then she spends there long periods of time when she's not there. So I think we have a marriage. Trump, who has somehow tried to construct this identity, a weird identity under the circumstances of family values. Every man has the most exceptional marriage in America.
It kind of reminds me of Vinnie Barbarino on Welcome Back, Kotter. What? Where? When? I mean, it's like things happen, and then he doesn't want to face his challenges or face anything that is the truth.
Well, Donald Trump does what works for him, and it really does work. We all stand back and think, what is going on here? How could he ever do that? How could anyone vote for him? What explains this? And we don't know, except for the fact that what we can say, it has worked in a way that no one ever has imagined something like this could work. Which is what we're trying to do on this weekly basis. Every week return to what did he do this
Yes.
week? What's the significance of that? What's the meaning of this? What is, how can you figure out what he's really trying to do? And does he know what he's really trying to do?
When you host a podcast like this, let's turn the hands of time forward. It's not that I feel something inside my heart. They're going to come after the podcasters. Our freedom to speak is going to be shut down because of the honesty that we're trying to share and how we're trying to reach out there. Do you ever think about that?
Well, I've had some experience with this. When I wrote my first book, Fire and Fury, the president of the United States, then Donald Trump, came after me, threatened me, tried to sue me, tried to prevent the publication of the book, and all this had the effect of helping me sell millions of copies, frankly. And you would have thought I would have been Donald Trump's worst enemy, and perhaps I was Donald Trump's worst enemy. But then when it came time to do another book, and I know this from someone on his staff, someone went to him and said, "Hey, he was out of office then. He said, I hear Michael Wolff is going to write another book," and Trump immediately said, "Oh, that guy gets ratings. Let's have him down to Mar-a-Lago."
Of course.
Suddenly I got an invitation to have dinner with Trump and Melania.
Mm-hmm. James, how do you explain the Rupert Murdoch, Donald Trump love-hate war?
Well, I would actually, since Michael has written about both Rupert Murdoch and Donald Trump, I feel I'm in the presence of a greater expert. So I'm going to throw that one back to Michael.
I think I truly am the expert here. And as a matter of fact, and I will do a story from some time ago. This was when I was writing my biography of Rupert Murdoch, and I kind of spent a year with Murdoch. And one morning I went to Murdoch's apartment to have breakfast with him. And Murdoch at that time was living in a Trump building. It was the building, in fact, where Ivanka and Jared Kushner lived. And Rupert and I had our conversation, lasted for an hour or so, and then we both left together, and we were on the elevator, and the elevator is going down, then it stops and doors open, and Donald Trump gets on. So I am on an elevator with Rupert Murdoch and Donald Trump, and Rupert Murdoch says something to Donald Trump, a set of just pleasantries, Rupert has an incredible mumble, and he has this heavy Australian accent. And Trump turns to me at that point and he says, "Do you ever understand anything he says?" So I at that moment, the two characters of my life were united. But it has been Fox News helped make Donald Trump for the past since after January 6th. Rupert Murdoch has set out to try to break Donald Trump. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, Rupert Murdoch really invented Ron DeSantis as a national candidate.
Right.
Fox was instructed to keep Trump off the air. But they're now very much back again. And Rupert Murdoch, 93-year-old Rupert Murdoch, was one of the people who Trump saw before his acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention.
Wow. James, has the game changed when it comes to the new challenger on the other side on the Democratic Party in the way that, right away, Trump went after with racism and saying things, and he went after Tim really, really hard. But, the game is changing, but it's still the same old Trump.
Well, that's right. And if you keep lobbying exactly the same insults at everyone who comes along, it's the crying wolf. Suddenly they seem, less effective and less impressive. So I felt that Trump's response after Wolff was introduced in Pennsylvania was so rote, so routine, that it began to feel feeble in a way that you don't expect of Trump. And obviously he's going to have to up his game, other than going back to the same old litany of cliches.
Wow. So now, Michael, do you think he's going to show up at the Olympics? We're talking about a man who loves global love, and I just feel like that he hasn't been there yet. Why has he not done that?
Well, he is running for the president of the United States, which is hard to do in France. Number one, but also this is an incredibly fraught moment in this campaign. I don't know if that's if I don't know exactly how they're going to approach this situation with two new people to run against a wholly configured race. Now, it might be a good idea. Trump is, what Trump has to do is capture the headlines again. Would it be a good idea to go to Paris? Maybe I will pass along your suggestion. And then if that works and he wins, you'll be to blame.
Oh, God, no, don't do that to me. James, do you sit back and think, those damn crazy Americans, will they ever get their act together?
Well, I've lived here since I was 21. So I spent 10 years bemused by crazy Americans, then slowly came to accept that I was becoming one of them. Because I look at the English now and I think, whoa, there's crazy English.
Michael, would you like to be a fly on the wall while Donald Trump watches the Democratic convention?
I think that I will likely be a fly on the wall when he watches the Democratic convention. So I will let you know how that turns out.
See, I would be in there taking every freaking note that I could get because I would love to document everything that goes on. I'm such a freak when it comes to writing stuff down.
Well, one of the things when you do what I do is that you can't be obvious about what you're writing down.
Okay.
So this is an act of memory, and also it's just good to go to the bathroom a lot.
What have you learned from all of this, James?
From the podcast with Michael? Well, I'll answer that obliquely. In the one we recorded yesterday, I asked Michael, since Trump is clearly in search of a solution, I said, Michael, you know him well and you know politics well. What would you tell him to do? And I felt Michael came up with a very interesting answer. He said, well, I might have the answer to that, but I'm not sure I would tell it to Donald Trump. So I think, with our podcast, we're speculating about what he can and should do better, but we are also alert and alarmed by the ways that this might go.
The two of you on this podcast, what you do is you create awareness. We all assume that we know, but then when we tune into this podcast, you allow us to truly know what's going on.
I think that's what I've tried to do in the three books that I've written to date about Trump is, there is what we know because we see it on television and we read the newspapers, and then there's a whole other layer of nuance and motivation and again Tim Walls's word, which I think is an incredibly useful one, weirdness. Political reporters, and that's who writes about Trump, can't say about a politician, he's crazy. That's the answer. Why is he doing this? He's crazy. They can't say that. They have to write in the political terms of cause and effect. Now, I don't come to this. I've written a lot about politics, but I am not per se a political reporter. I'm a magazine writer who has written about a lot of broad subjects, but also who's fundamentally interested in character, what makes a person tick. And so to come back, that's the point at which we're always coming back to, not from a political point of view, but from a character point of view. And I think that's what's really necessary to understand this guy.
Yeah, but Michael, don't you think his character is changing our character, and I fear for those in the future?
Well, I mean, his character is certainly changing the how we see politics and how we see the variables and the alternatives of politics. Politics used to be a fairly one-dimensional game up until Donald Trump. And now it's, we don't know what it is. We literally don't know what it is anymore. We don't know the motivations. We don't know, the cause and effect assumptions, all thrown out the door. And that's that's one of the things that's scary, certainly scary to political reporters, and scary to a good part of the country. And for another country, it's a breath of fresh. Another part of the country, it's a breath of fresh air.
Wow. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this podcast, because when each episode drops, I'm going, yes, I get to be with my guys. These are my guys. They're speaking my street.
Thank you so much.
Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Great. Thanks so much.
That's great. Thank you.
Be brilliant, you two, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.